My name is Alex. I stand in my driveway. A shirt falls on the hood of my car. Then a pair of jeans. Then a shoe. My wife, Julia, leans out of the second floor window and shouts that I must get out of her house. Her face is red. Her voice is raw. Behind her stands her son, Tom. He puts a hand on her shoulder and looks down at me. For a second, a small smile appears. It is gone the moment he sees I have noticed. This morning, we had coffee in the kitchen before work. It was quiet. We spoke about the day. There was no fight. There was no sign. Now I look up at that window and do not understand how it all went to shit. I met Julia 1 year ago in a small coffee shop where she was the manager. She said she had lost her husband 2 years earlier. Tom was 15 when we met. I told Julia I would never try to replace his father, but I would show up and be steady. We dated for 6 months. I asked her to marry me, and she said yes, with tears in her eyes. The first 8 months were smooth. Tom was polite but distant. I did not push him to call me dad. I looked after him like a father, covered his bills, bought him expensive clothes, and gave him cash for his own needs. We moved to a bigger house so he could have more space. I thought he was adjusting. I told myself that time would help. Then small things began. Tom started to talk more about a girl. Her name was Sophie. She lived 2 hours away in the city. He met her online and visited her twice with friends. He talked about her laugh and her plans and how she understood him. I was glad he had someone. Then he said he wanted to move there after graduation, to be near her, to start fresh. Julia said we would talk about college plans later. Tom pressed. He said Sophie needed him. He said the city had better opportunities. He said this town was too small and too slow. I listened and told him we could visit schools in that area. He said it was not about school. It was about Sophie. I told him that moving for a relationship at 15 was a risk. His face went hard. He stood up without a word and left the room. 2 weeks later, Julia asked what I thought of Sophie. I told her I had never met her, but she seemed to make Tom happy. She stared at me for a while without saying a word, making it clear she doubted what I had said. That night at dinner, Tom pretended not to notice me. A month before the end, Tom came home with his friend Ryan. He wore a chain, had a sleeve of tattoos, smoked out front, and talked about parties and late nights in the city. I did not trust him. I asked Tom if Ryan was a good influence. Tom said Ryan was his best friend and the only one who understood him. I said I wanted to meet Ryan properly and talk. Tom said there was nothing to talk about. Julia pulled me aside and said Ryan came from a hard background but was loyal to Tom. She said Tom needed friends. I said Tom needed friends who did not smoke and talk about breaking into abandoned buildings for fun. She said I was being judgmental. I told her I was being a parent. She turned away and said I was not his parent. That week, Tom told Julia he wanted to visit Sophie for a long weekend. Julia said yes. I said we should meet Sophie first, or at least talk to her parents. Tom exploded, accusing me of being controlling, of hating Sophie, and of trying to keep him stuck here. Julia tried to calm him, but he left the room fast. She asked why I could not just let him be happy. I said I was just trying to keep him safe. She said her son did not feel that way. After that, the house changed. Tom stopped eating dinner with us. He spent hours in his room with Ryan. I heard them laugh through the door. When I walked past, they went silent. Julia began to ask me if I said things to Tom when she was not home. I said I barely spoke to him anymore. She asked why he would lie. I had no answer that she would hear. I tried to fix what I could fix. I suggested family dinners on Fridays. Julia said Tom had plans. I suggested a weekend trip. She said Tom was not interested. I asked if we could all sit with a counselor. She said Tom would feel attacked. I did not push. 3 weeks before she threw me out, I came home, and Julia said we had to talk. Her hands were shaking. She pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots. Text messages, my name at the top. The words were ugly. Threats about what I would do if Tom kept seeing Sophie. Warnings about how I could make his life hard. One message said I would throw him out if he did not stop acting like a child. I stared at the screen. I said I had never sent those. I asked to see the details. She pulled the phone back. She said Tom was afraid of me. She said he had shown her these weeks ago, but did not want to cause trouble. She said now he was scared to be in the house alone with me. I reached for the phone to check the number. She stepped back like I was a danger. She said Tom told her I was two-faced. Tom stood on the stairs and watched like he was outside the scene. His face was pale. He called for his mother and said he heard yelling and said not to let me hurt her. Julia told me to pack a bag and leave until she could make sure her son was safe. I packed with shaking hands. I took my wallet, my keys, 2 shirts, 2 pairs of pants. I drove to my brother David. The first week I called Julia many times. No answer. I sent messages. No answer. I did not eat well. I did not sleep well. The second week the shock faded and something else took its place. I opened a yellow legal pad and wrote a date at the top. I listed what I knew. I wrote times. I wrote what was said. I called a lawyer named Anna. I told her what had happened. Anna asked if the house was in my name. I said yes, I had bought it before we got married. She told me that helped. She said we could file it once if I wanted. I said I was not sure yet. She said that in her work, when someone chooses to believe the worst, with no proof, it is very hard to change it. I thanked her and told her I would bring papers if we reached that point. I sat with the screenshots in my mind. Something was wrong. The messages were from my number, but I had never sent them. I called my phone company. I asked if messages could be faked. The worker said yes. Apps exist that let you create fake conversations. They look real. They can use any name and any number. And she said people use them for pranks or to frame someone. I asked how I could prove the messages were fake. She said I would need access to my actual phone records. I requested them that day. The records came back in 4 days. I went through every message I sent in the past 6 months. There was nothing to Tom, nothing about Sophie, nothing that matched the screenshots. I printed the records and put them in a folder. Then I called a tech consultant named Eric. I sent him the screenshots Julia had shown me. He looked at them for 10 minutes and called me back. He said the font was slightly off. The spacing between lines was not standard for my phone model. He said it was a generated image, a fake. He wrote a short report and sent it to me. I put the report in the folder with the phone records. I felt cold and tired. A 15-year-old had built fake evidence to destroy me, and it had worked. Then something unexpected happened. 4 days after I received the phone records, Ryan called me. His voice was tight. He said he needed to talk. I said I was listening. He said not on the phone. We met at a diner on the edge of town. He sat across from me with his eyes down, avoiding my face. He said Tom asked him to help, to back up the story about the threatening messages, to tell Julia that he had seen me angry and heard me say cruel things about Sophie. Ryan said he agreed at first because Tom was his friend and Tom said I was ruining his life. But then Tom showed him the fake screenshots. Ryan asked if they were real. Tom laughed and said it did not matter because they looked real. Ryan said that scared him. He said he started to think about what else Tom might lie about. He said Tom talked all the time about moving to the city with Sophie and how he needed his mother to sell the house and go with him. Ryan said Tom was obsessed. He said Tom told him the only thing in the way was me. Ryan looked at me then. He said he was sorry. He said he should have spoken sooner. He said he could tell Julia what Tom had done. I asked why he was doing this now. He said because his own father had left when he was young and his mother remarried a good man. He said if someone had lied to make his stepfather leave, he would want to know. I thanked him. I asked if he would write down what he just told me. He nodded. We sat there for 20 minutes while he wrote it out by hand on a blank note page. He signed it and dated it. I put it in the folder. The next day I sent Julia a message. I said I had new information and we needed to meet. I said it was not a trap. I said she could bring Tom if she wanted. She did not reply for 6 hours. Then she sent one line. Tomorrow at 2, the same coffee shop where we first met. I arrived early. I picked a table by a window and a wall so I could see the door and the lot. I set my phone next to a folded note. I put the folder on the chair beside me. I ordered water and did not drink it. Julia arrived at 2. She looked thin. Her shoulders were low. There were circles under her eyes. For a second, I felt the first 8 months again, and my chest hurt. Then I remembered the window and my clothes on the hood of my car. She sat down. She started to talk about how we could work through this, if I admitted what I had done. I held up a hand to stop her. I slid the folder across the table. She looked down and then at me. I told her to open it. On top were the divorce forms. Her lips moved, but she said nothing. I asked her to keep going. She saw the phone records. Every message I sent in 6 months. Nothing to Tom. Nothing about Sophie. She said the screenshots were from my number. I told her to look at the next page, Eric's report, the font analysis, the spacing errors, the conclusion that the images were generated by an app. Her hands began to shake. She said Tom would not do that. I told her to keep reading Ryan's statement, written in his own hand, dated and signed. He described how Tom asked him to lie, how Tom showed him the fake screenshots and laughed, how Tom said it did not matter if they were real because they looked real. Julia read it twice. Her face was white. She looked up at me and asked why Ryan would lie. I said Ryan was not lying. I said Tom was. She asked where Tom got the idea. I said I did not know. Maybe from Ryan, possibly from the internet. Perhaps he thought of it himself. I said it did not matter where he got the idea. What mattered was that he used it. What mattered was that she believed him without checking. She started to cry. She said she was protecting her son. I said she was protecting a lie. I said she threw me out of my own house, based on fake screenshots and no proof. I said I had begged her to talk to me, and she had not answered for 3 weeks. I said there was nothing left to save. She reached across the table. I pulled my hand back. She said we could go to counseling. She said Tom could apologize. I said I did not want an apology from Tom. I said I wanted a divorce. She asked for time. I said no. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Tom. I opened it. A video file. I pressed play. The sound was low. The image was shaky. Tom sat on his bed. His face was red. His eyes were wet. Tom apologized. The screenshots were his, made because he wanted to be with Sophie and I was in the way. Ryan had told him he was going to talk to me, and Tom knew it was over. He had not expected it to go this far. He just wanted his mom to choose him. The video ended. I looked at Julia. She was staring at the phone. I turned the screen toward her and played it again. She watched her son confess. Her hand went to her mouth. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were full of tears. She whispered that he was just a kid. I said he was 15 and knew exactly what he was doing. She said he was scared of losing her. I said that did not make it right. She had no answer. I stood up, took my copy of the forms. I told her she had 30 days to find a place. Furthermore, I said the date out loud, put the same date on a paper, and slid it across. It sat there in the middle of the table. Julia asked if I hated her. I said no. I said I was tired. Furthermore, I told her I could not be married to someone who would believe the worst of me without asking a single question. She started to speak, but I turned and walked out. In the car, I sat for a long time. I did not look back at the window. I drove to David's house and parked in his driveway and stared at the steering wheel until my breathing slowed. A month later, Anna called and said they moved out on time. They found a small place across town. There was no payment from me. The house stays with me. I put the folder in a box and put the box on a high shelf in my closet. In the first week after they left, I walked through each room and made a list of what to fix. A loose hinge on a door, a drawer that sticks, a small crack in a tile. I fixed them one by one. I changed the bed and opened a window and let the room breathe. At night, I sat at the table with a cup of tea and read my notes from the yellow pad. Dates, times, words. The work of it made me calm. If I felt the old panic rise, I put my hand flat on the table and named 3 things I could see. Cup, pen, light. Then I picked up the pen and wrote one more line. On a Sunday morning, my brother David stopped by with a bag of bread. We ate at the table in the kitchen. He asked if I felt free or just empty. I said both truths could live in the same room. He nodded and did not try to fill the space. When he left, he stood in the doorway and said, "You did not do this to them." "They did this to you." I did not answer. I closed the door, locked it, and stood there until my breathing slowed. I did not block the number of Julia. A week later, she sent 3 lines. She said she was sorry. She said Tom was seeing a counselor. Furthermore, she said she hoped I was well. I did not reply. I do not hate her. Not only that, but I do not wish harm on Tom. Likewise, I do not plan to forget. I called Anna and asked what steps remained. She said we had court dates on paper, only because there was no contest. She said to keep all records for a long time. I saved copies to a small drive and put it in a safe place. In the months that followed, I kept my life simple. I cooked simple food. I walked in the evening. I went to work and came home and turned off my phone for an hour and sat with quiet. Not only that, but I did not look at the pages of Julia online and did not ask friends about her. Some days I felt heavy. Some days I felt light. On both kinds of days, I turned one page in the yellow pad and wrote one true line. You cannot build a marriage with someone who will not ask for proof when the story is hard. You cannot share a house with a person who will throw you out to make her child feel strong. I learned that lesson the slow way and then the sharp way. Now I keep my records. I keep my house. I keep my word to myself. If you face a room like the one I faced, write it down. Ask for proof. Keep a record. Tell the truth. This will not be over fast, but it is clear.